Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining me for this online workshop, the 7 steps to writing successful grant applications today. So just want to congratulate you for taking the time the next 45 minutes to learn how to write successful grant applications, and I will share with you my proven process of how I do that for my clients. So before we start, just want to start with some basic housekeeping for those that are online, and hello to those that are watching the recording as well. Please have yourself on mute. The webinar will be recorded. Please write any questions in the chat, starting with a Q, so I can easily identify them. And just a note on the emails, obviously we are using the Eventbrite platform for these events. So there will be some follow-up emails, so be sure to check your junk and spam folder in the next couple of days as well. But the fact that you're online, these emails have come through, so that is great. So let's make a start. So who here is a small business owner? Put your hand up or write yes in the chat. So I'm sure a few of you are. Who is already too busy? Yes. And who wears all the hats in the business? Yes, I'm sure many of you. So small business owners are often not ready and don't know what's required for grant applications. The grant programs have a short application period, sometimes as little as 4 weeks. Now, that is not long. And resources and time are scarce and limited. So, as we all know, small business owners are already so busy wearing all the hats in the business. So, how can we possibly find time to do the grants? So, that's where I can help you. Often it can really feel really hard to try and put a grant application together because we're already too busy. So we don't want to put more pressure on small business owners. And I do want to ask you one thing. How much free money are you missing out on if you do not at least investigate applicable grant opportunities or try and find those grants for your business? Hi, I'm Liz, the Efficiency Coach. I'm a business coach and grant writer for small business. What I'm obsessed with is making sure your business has the best opportunity to be successful. You know how there's never enough hours in the day to get that grant application written, and it's something that just never gets done as it seems just too stressful. Well, what I do is help you and your business to be ready when a grant program is released so that you have the right tools and information at your fingertips to be able to present your business in the best possible way. Now, I have a bit of a geeky admission to make here, and that is that I love writing grant applications. For me, it is a way to learn more about you and your business, and to be part of that process of reflecting on what you've done in the past for your business and also looking at the future as well. What do you want to achieve? I've got experience in managing government grant programs for government agencies here in Australia. And I've got an 85% success rate in writing grant applications. Now, that is nearly unheard of. Most grant writers are at the 20 or 30% mark. So why do I have such a high success rate? It's because I'm pretty upfront about how strong your project or idea is for each program. So each grant program has its own set of outcomes, objectives, why are they giving away the money? And they're not just giving it away, they want something in return. But does our project align with what they're trying to achieve? Is it for the right groups? Does it benefit the right people? And this is where we'll have an initial chat. And if I don't feel that your project is aligned with those grant program objectives or benefits, and that it would be too hard to write it, then, it would be, remiss of me to try and write a grant application, but I don't think it's going to be good enough to get through. So, I am really clear about with my clients what components of their project need to be in that application and how that's going to benefit your business as well. So as I've said, grant applications are my thing. So hands up if you've had a grant application not approved. Has anyone in the room had that? Now, nobody is talking about this. Nobody is helping you to do this. And that's why we're here today, as I take you through my proven process that I use with my clients. So allow me to work within my zone of genius while you continue to work within yours. And this is so true when it comes to grants. Nothing is more expensive than a missed opportunity. So if we don't know a grant exists, if we're too late, or if we're just not ready, we don't know what our project looks like, then we're missing these opportunities. We're leaving money on the table, as some would say. So let's make a start. As I say, I'm sharing with you today my proven process of the 7 steps to writing successful grant applications. And my guarantee to you is that by the end of today's workshop, you'll have 7 steps to follow when writing grant applications. And the process I will outline is the process that I follow with my clients. So let's make a start. Step number 1. Now, this is all to do with success. What does success mean to you? And we know it means different things to different people, but it's all in the preparation for a great result. And it's the same when it comes to grant applications. We need to get organized. We need to be in that successful mindset. And we need, as I said at the start, sometimes it's only 4 to 5 weeks between the grant program being opened and the grant applications closing. So you might not find out till week 1 or 2 or 3, and then you've only got 2 or 3 weeks to do it. That's not a lot of time. So we definitely need to get organized. This means we need to get all the information. We need to look at the grant program eligibility criteria. We need to look at the project criteria. What are they trying to achieve? What are the objectives? What are the outcomes that this grant program are trying to achieve? Most of the grant programs are government funded, and they want some kind of return on investment. They want to give that money to the best businesses with the best projects so that they can then later on say, hey, look what we did, and take the credit for it. So that's kind of how it works. So they need to be on board with your project because they want to be successful as well. So reading that criteria is really, really important. And this is where you draft your outline. Now, this is linked in with the criteria, the eligibility, ticking off those boxes right from the beginning, and then really roughly drafting what's your project. What are you actually applying for? So when we're applying for grant funding, we're applying for money. What are we going to spend that money on? Are we buying equipment? Are we buying time? Have we got consultants in? Are we paying for labor? What are we actually going to apply for the funding from? What are we actually going to spend it on? So that's really important as step 1. And I always say to people, you need to read that criteria. You need to read the guidelines. You need to read the application form. Quite often nowadays, there'll be a portal you need to submit the application through, and they'll give you a draft, like a blank application form. So you'll know what kind of the questions that need to be answered. So that's what I mean by preparing to be successful, getting organized from the start, and having a rough outline of what you're going to apply for. Now, step 2 is planning that work plan. So taking the application form, the assessment criteria, the looking at what is actually involved, what quotes need to be, all that sort of stuff, and putting it into a numbered checklist. So this is all the questions and information that needs to be gathered. It's also related to what documents need to be prepared or gathered, and starting from there. But a numbered checklist so that we can keep track of it, we can tick it off, track our progress, and make sure that we are going to be able to submit it in time and plan accordingly. This is where we also bring together the team. So, in a small business, it might just be you. You might need to, engage some other staff, but whoever's going to be involved in this grant application, you need to bring them together in a kickoff meeting to go through that numbered checklist, to go through that work plan and work out who's going to do what. Now, it doesn't have to be me, but I do recommend that you do need to make sure you find someone who has the skills and knowledge to help you through this process and has been through this process before, and that they know what they're doing. So there's many grant writers out there. Do be careful how they charge. Some will expect upfront payment, which is fine. That's how I do it. It's a consulting fee. Others expect a 10% of the grant once you get it. And you do have to be careful, because going back to the criteria, you can't apply for funding to get the grant written. So, you know, we need to make sure of that as well. But it is really important that you do have someone on your team that has experience and knows what they're doing when it comes to grant writing, because it is quite a skill. And especially when you're working in this tight time frame environment, when there's a lot of stuff to be done, attention to detail is really important, and we need to make sure that everything is done properly. Step 3, this is where we create and design our own project plan. So I treat writing a grant application just like any other project. And I also sort of treat it a bit like a job application, when we need to do all the preparation, get everything sorted, and have quite a detailed plan of what we're going to do. Now, this is where we're talking about what's the project, what are we asking for funding, what are we going to spend the money on, who are we going to engage. Now, this step needs to be quite detailed. And this is what we need to do for success. So it keeps everyone on track throughout the entire process to meet those deadlines. Now, why do I keep going on about the deadlines? There'll be a deadline of 11:59 p.m. Application by the portal. We have to have a login and all that kind of stuff. If you have computer issues and all that sort of stuff, they're not going to care. You can't email it, you can't send it in the post. You've got to make sure that you've got everything there before the deadline. So those deadlines are super, super important. So the other thing with the projects is quite often the grant programs will stipulate how long that project has. So did one the other day where it had to start by January next year and it had to finish within 2 years. So we planned out that project. Obviously it's a proposed project, but for it to sort of be about an 18-month project to fit within those guidelines. So as I say, there's a lot of criteria, there's a lot of things to consider when you are mapping and planning out this grant application. Allocating tasks and actions. So going back to your team on that kickoff meeting, who's going to do what by when, and whether you've got to request external documents from external parties, giving them deadlines, keeping them on track, and making sure they're doing it as well. And always, when it comes to deadlines, you need to work backwards. And if you need something by Friday, you need to tell them by Wednesday, because everyone's busy. You have to plan for delays. But at the end of the day, if we don't have that information at our fingertips, we can't write the grant application. If we don't have certain information, we won't be able to submit it either. So it becomes a big merry-go-round and a whole lot of components that need to be factored into this process. And then looking at the project, so what are the costs that are involved? So here I'm talking about the budget. Again, we're asking for funding, we're asking for money. Again, there'll be limits on how much money you can apply for. And so you need to make sure that, you know, can you top that project up with your own funding? What are the rules around getting funding from somewhere else for the same project and all that kind of stuff. But having your budget at this point is also really important, because does it fit within the guidelines of the grant program? Yes or no? And if it doesn't, we need to be working out either how it can or not applying. So that's what's very, very important. And I'm not just saying that because I'm an accountant, but the budget does frame the entire project, because we need to be looking at what we can apply for funding, what's eligible for funding, but there'll be some costs in there that might not be eligible, but still need to form part of the project that we need to put into the application. But then that's the components that our organisation or your organisation will fund and all that sort of stuff. So that's what I mean by that. So the next step, this is bringing to the fore, collating all those supporting documents. So most grant programs ask for some really basic information about your business, but also might ask for a comprehensive budget, might ask for some documents that and some drawings, some designs, all that kind of stuff. Writing letters of support. Now, this is one thing that a lot of people don't consider. Some grant programs will specifically ask for them and some won't. So some grant applications will say only attach what we've asked for. And then others will say, hey, you can attach up to 8 attachments. We don't care what they are to support your application. So again, really important to read that. But letters of support are from the people that are going to be involved in this project, that are going to benefit from this project. And basically it's saying, hey, government agency, please support this project because it's going to do this, this, and this for the community or for other businesses or the group of people that we're trying to support. So that's what a letter of support is. And they are really crucial to successful grant applications. Getting quotes. So most grant applications will not be able to be submitted without getting quotes. Doesn't mean to say you have to use, most often you don't necessarily have to use those same suppliers. And the other thing is with quotes is we get a quote today that's only valid for 30 days. We don't find out about the grant application for a few months. We might have to go and get it re-quoted as well. So this is what's really important, to be building those relationships with your suppliers, building out who would do this project, and then most importantly, getting them to do the quote within the time frame that we've got, that it's a valid quote to attach to the grant application, because at the end of the day, that quote becomes your budget. So if they've done a really low quote, but you know it's going to be more, you need that quote to be as realistic as possible for the time of application. Some larger grant applications do require the submission of financial reports. So it is really important to have your financial reports up to date as much as possible. And same with this here is I'm a chartered accountant. And so quite often they ask those financial reports to be signed off by an accountant. So if you've got zero, we can jump into there, get your financial reports, I can sign them off, and away we go. So saving you time and money with your accountant as an extra expense. Same with the statutory declarations, which are sometimes required as well, where the applicants have to basically declare that the information that they have submitted for either the grant application and then for when the grant is acquitted at the end of the process. And again, that can be signed off by a chartered accountant as well. And this is the point where we're just getting shit done. We just need to get everything together for this application. And if we haven't got everything here at this point, then there's no point proceeding. We know we can't submit a grant application without quotes if they've asked for letters of support. So again, it comes back to the planning. How many letters of support are we going to send? Are we going to request and hope we get some back? Same with quotes. We probably need to go to 2 or 3 suppliers to at least get one back. And then looking at what other documents are required. So some grant applications will ask for your business plan. Some will ask for your marketing plan, some will ask for a risk management plan for the project and all that kind of stuff. So this can really derail a lot of small businesses because they just don't have these documents at hand. And step number 5 is the starting of writing your draft application. So this is the number 1 piece of feedback that I get from attendees at these webinars, and I've been doing them weekly since the start of the year, is that they don't realize that there's 4 whole really important steps before you get to the most important step of step 5 of writing. So many people tell me when they're applying for a grant, they just start writing. And then when they get to page 10 of the application, they're like, oh, I need this, this, and this, and it's 2 days to go. It's all just too late. So the planning and the preparation is going to set you up for success. And this is why step 5, we only start writing draft applications. So, you know, when we're doing our checklist and we're doing our draft document in a Word document, we can start writing, but we're not piecing it together until we've got everything, because we need to know the budgets. We need to know the components of what we're applying funding for. How is everything interrelated? And it becomes really, really important. Then we're looking at the key criteria to address. So again, what are those guidelines? What are the expected outcomes of this grant program? And we need to make sure that we factor this into our application as best we can. The guidelines, more often than not, will also tell you what the assessment weightings are. So how are they going to score this? So it's just like an assignment or a test at school or university. They will answer it and it'll give a mark out of 10, and then that will give a weighting to the overall score. Checking the word and the character limits. Now, this is really important, and I've seen lately the grant portals have become very smart. So when we are putting our draft application into the Word document with our checklist and everything like that, I always make sure that I've written in the word limit and the character limit right there and then, because there's no point writing 3 pages if it's only a 200 word limit. And when you copy and paste into the grant portal for submission, it'll actually cut the words off. So that is really, really important. And it develops your language in terms of what are the key messages we're trying to get across from each question, and making sure that we are answering the question that they have given us. I've seen it so many times when people are describing what is the project and people have just, because they're so in their business, they know it inside out, they've completely forgotten to write the one sentence of this project is to purchase XYZ for this purpose. They've skipped that because, oh no, we know that because we've called it that. It's like, no. We need to make sure when we're writing this draft application that we need to absolutely assume that the people on the panel know nothing about your business, nothing about this project. You need to tell them everything in simple, plain English language to make sure that that message gets across in the best possible way. The next step is overlaying your why and your story. So this is all about writing in a persuasive way. So again, the panelists need to be convinced that your project is one of the best projects, because more often than not, a grant program will be oversubscribed. It's very competitive. More often than not, we also don't know what total funding is available. So we need to absolutely write this in a way that we will be, have the best chance of being successful for these grants. And so making sure that we have come across and given the reasons why our project is the best with the most outcome, going back to those guidelines and those outcomes from and objectives from the grant guidelines right from step 1. And making sure you include the benefits to the targeted audience. So this is where I always say to people, you need to print off the guidelines so that when you're writing it and doing this second to last step, you're making sure you're using the buzzwords, you've taken bits out of what they're referring to, how are they describing things? So that's how you should be describing things as well. So you're creating that alignment where they go, oh, this project absolutely ticks all our boxes. It's talking about the right stuff. It's going to do this and this and this, and it's really simple and plain and easy to understand. Now that brings us to step 7, which is the last step. And this is where we would review the grant application. I always get someone else to review and read the application. A couple of reasons for this. We want to be checking for grammar. We want to be checking those word limits and stuff. We want to make sure it makes sense, and we want to make sure that it flows. Does it go from A to B to C to D? Does it, work in its favor, that it's clearly articulating the benefits and meeting the objectives of the grant program as well? And it's like anything, we can get really entrenched in writing these grant applications and missing a key element as well. And also, when it comes to someone else, so I would get my clients to review it. Making sure that everything's factually correct as well, which is super, super important, and making sure that they're happy with what I've said would be the outcomes or the benefits or the risks or whatever, because at the end of the day, their name is going on the application as well. Pressing submit. Now, this is always a nerve-wracking thing, making sure that you've checked all your attachments, you've checked everything that you're supposed to have in there. And when we are planning, going back to the first stages, I always plan that we're going to finish the grant application a couple of days before the deadline, just to create that buffer where there might be a delay, someone might be sick, something might happen. And also when it comes to submission, the earlier you can submit, the better. But you also need to balance that with, well, do I have all the information? Have I got it up to scratch? But I definitely wouldn't be leaving it to like the last hour. I did have one client last year that their computer crashed, and they were literally submitting it like 10 minutes before the cutoff date, cutoff time. So we don't want that. It's super stressful already, and just planning for that 1 to 2 days before the deadline and just giving yourself a bit of a buffer. And making sure that at this point you also celebrate. Creating the grant application, and I have feedback from clients where they say, oh, actually, this has forced us to reflect. This has forced us to really critically analyze our business. It's forced us to really think about, well, how is that project going to benefit us in the whole scheme of our business? And what does the future look like? So, like a lot of stuff, it's not so much the outcome, it's actually the process and the journey you've gone through to do the grant application. And I think that's why I really enjoy doing them, because it is, effectively creating a really good resource for your business that you can refer to. You can then use it for other grant applications, other funding applications, and it does force you to really critically analyze your business as well. So there's the 7 steps. We start with the preparation. Basically, the preparation is making sure that we have a good application, good project in the first instance. Then we're going to plan out that project and who's going to do it. And we create and design our work program. Then we're going to collate all the supporting documentation. And then we start writing. Then we get focused and we start writing this grant application. Then we add in the layer of the persuasiveness, adding our story. Why are we doing it? What is this leading to? What are the outcomes and benefits going to be? And then the review and the submission. So that's all important as well. So if you just pop in the chat, what is your biggest takeaway from today? What I've just taken you through is my 7 steps to writing successful grant applications that I use with my clients. And I'd really love to hear from you what the most, what your best takeaway was, or something you didn't quite realize, or something that you will implement in the future when you're writing your grant application. So if you can pop them into the chat, that'd be great. And if you have any questions, remember to put the Q, and I can answer them a little bit later on. So as I mentioned, a lot of people are surprised that step 5 is writing. And people don't take that time to plan it out properly, and then also get, really stressed at the end when they're trying to submit it with a couple of hours to go, which is absolutely not what we want at all. So just something to keep in mind there as well. Planning out the project is just as important as planning out the grant application, because if we don't have a decent project, we can't do we can't even do the application. So Joe says that you write the actual application after 4 other steps. Yes, that is the number one takeaway that people are really surprised by. And I think it's just because we don't do it in an ordered way. And I work with a lot of creatives, and a lot of passionate business owners where they just want to get in and get it done. But to do that information and do that planning at the start, trust me, it makes it way easier. And the support material early, absolutely. We need to be making sure. I actually run a program called the Grant Ready program, that we actually plan out the project as if there was a grant before there's a grant, and then actually making people go to the suppliers, getting the quotes, and actually doing the application way earlier, because then they could just work out, well, actually, this is going to double my revenue, or this is going to grow my business, and I can go and get funding from somewhere else, or I can use, some capital that we've got somewhere else, rather than waiting for a grant. So there's a whole lot of benefits to learning about this process of the support material. Letters of support. So another trick on that is also, if you work with me, I actually draft a letter of support for the person. So we send it to them in a Word document. We write a paragraph about what the project is about, who it's going to benefit. We get them to, add their own words in, sign it, put on the letterhead and send back to us. So again, we're not asking them to commit to anything. We're not asking them to write a whole letter from scratch. We are helping them and also really incentivizing them to get it in on the deadline. And same with the letters of support. We would normally try and send out 4 or 5 requests, hoping we get sort of 2 or 3 back. If we get all 5 back, great, we can attach all of them, but you definitely want 1 or 2. And some grant programs and applications do require letters of support. And every application that I do, most, even if they don't ask for them and it's appropriate to get a letter of support, then we definitely will aim for that, which is great as well. Cool. So thank you for sharing. So some other questions that regularly come up that I'm going to share with you today. So this is the part that is related to Australia, but I'm sure that wherever you are, whether it be America, there will be some similar answers as well. So somebody's also said the planning phase for me is very critical, and I think that alone for me will take 4 weeks. Absolutely. So this is the whole thing. Planning that project in the time that the grant application comes out can't be done sometimes, because you've got to get designers and you've got to get quotes and all that sort of stuff. So this is why I fully promote that you need to be ready for a grant before it comes out, because we don't have enough time. We've scrambled, and luckily I work better to deadlines and, get on people's cases and keep them on track to get deadlines there. And we'll go from there. So some really frequent questions that come up is, where do I find grants for my business? So I've just listed some here for Australia, but there are always private grant directories. So Grants Hub is one here that I pay a monthly subscription to. I can go in and search for criteria, and the grants will come up. And here in Australia and America is the same, where you've got grants at your local council level, you've got grants at state level, and then you've also got federal grants. So you need to find, and each of those levels of government will have websites and grant directories that you can sign up to get alerts. So definitely encourage you to do that. And then you can get those emails to your inbox and review them when they come through to see whether it's applicable for your business or for your community group. So they are for Australia, but if you just search grants in my area on Google, the directories will start coming up. Subscribe to them, and then you will start seeing some grants for you. One question that comes up quite a lot is, are there grants to help me start a business? And the short answer to this is no. As I said at the start, grant programs want a return on investment. They want to see an outcome and success from that money being funded for those businesses or those community groups. So they normally require businesses to be operating for at least 1 or 2 years, if not longer, because they want to see that it's already been a little bit successful, and also that you've taken the risk yourself on something rather than just expecting them to take the full risk from the beginning. So I normally say to people that want to start up a business, we can't do it for free, and you need at least, as an absolute minimum, and depending on your business, you need $5,000. So that'll allow you to get some business coaching, some advice, some marketing, but even just working on your website, but also working on, what are you going to sell? What's your product? Who's your audience? And doing all that research before you even start. So here in Australia, there is the NICE program for starting businesses, and it provides some income support, but there are income criteria for that. And also some of those programs are very cookie cutter, and they don't do an individual approach. So I've seen some clients that have come to me after those programs, and the information that's been given across those programs has not been advantageous to that person because of the type of business that they're trying to sell. So just be very careful around what support you do get when you are starting a business, because not all advice is going to help you. How are grants assessed? Now, this depends per grant program. I've been on the panel and been an assessor in the past. It comes back to those weightings. So whatever's in those guidelines, and that'll give you some indication of how they are assessed. So if you can answer the questions, as best you can, putting as much effort into the ones that have got greater weightings, answering all the questions, providing all the supporting documentation, then you've got a better chance. But they don't, they don't necessarily give away that information. And I did see a grant program last month where it was basically a ballot system. So, you just never know. So I've helped a number of businesses to get their grants. And I just wanted to share with you. So what is the difference between these businesses receiving grants and your business? So let's read some feedback. So Adam and Yulia, Liz's approach as a business coach is amazing, personal, on point and practical. These guys own a couple of businesses and they're creative. So they've got a wedding venue, a beverage business as well. So they're really creative. They've got a whole lot of ideas. They've got a whole lot of projects. So it was really important for me to keep them on track and to make sure, we were in daily contact, because one, we had to make sure there were people giving us quotes, letters of support, and just absolutely keeping up with it so that we can submit it on time. So creatives and organized people can work really well as a team. Chris got a $25,000 grant for a new cool room for his farm shop, creating efficiencies with his cold storage and looking much more professional. So that was pretty cool. And Ben and Jesse, clients of mine who were able to turn their side hustle into full-time business much earlier than they would have had it not been for the grant. So that one was a bit different, where that particular grant was designed for a business that hadn't been in business for more than 5 years. They were really focusing on those early stage businesses, but they had the side hustle. So that's really great to see as well. So now I can show you how I can help you and your business to grow and expand with business grants. So next Tuesday, I have got my online masterclass of how to write effective grant applications. So this is where, if you've enjoyed what you've learned today, I will share with you next Tuesday. We'll go into more detail. We'll go through some application forms. We'll go through some real life examples. We'll go through some do's and don'ts. It will cover the best approach, my approach, of how to learn to write these applications. We'll go through the process. It'll be interactive, real life examples, exercises and worksheets. And it will also really get you to critically think about if there was a grant for your business or your community group, what are you actually going to apply for funding for? That is the number one thing. So people find grants and think, oh, I'm eligible. But what are we going to apply for? What do we want money for? What is it going to do? This masterclass is for the small business owner or the community group committee member. And at the end of this masterclass, you'll have the skills and steps to be able to write effective grant applications for your organisation. So that is on next Tuesday, Australian time. There will be a recording if you can't make it live. But I'm just going to pop a link in here into the chat if you want more information. But it'll teach a more in-depth process of writing grant applications, an interactive workshop using real-life examples. And we share practical tips and hints to make grant writing stress-free and things to avoid along the way. I'll also be sharing with you some templates and some checklists to make it even easier. And some worksheets and resources will be provided to enhance your learning. And so that when you come out of the masterclass and a grant program comes out, then you can have a pretty good go at writing it yourself. Who's it for? Those who want to enhance their grant writing skills, business owners, team members and project managers, community group committee members as well. So I don't differentiate between whether we're writing a business grant, or a community group grant, it's the same process, it's just slightly different information, basically. And community group committee members are normally volunteers, so like business owners, and sometimes they're also business owners, they don't have any time. So that's why I have combined this masterclass to suit both those groups of people. So the masterclass, as I said, next Tuesday, 10 till 3. That does include an hour for lunch, which I will be available over that hour for you to ask other questions if you like as well. The best thing is each ticket is for 1 or 2 people from the same organisation to learn together. So if you buy 1 ticket, 2 people from the same organisation can come along so they can learn together. It is online, so it's on Zoom. And, you know, I want people to be able to learn from each other, learn together, and then also bounce ideas off each other, and also be able to engage with that information later on between each other, rather than forgetting about it or not learning it properly. So I've got a webinar special for you today. It's normally $497, but today $197 Australian per ticket. So for 2 people for less than $100 of a day of training, it is a bargain, and that information is in the chat link at the moment. So if you want to, if someone can just check that link is working for me, that'd be amazing. But yeah, the link's in the chat. If you do want to come along next Tuesday, I'd love to see you there. And if you can't make it live, the recording will be sent afterwards as well, that you'll have access to for 3 months after the event. So thanks, Joe. The link is working. That's great. The other thing I also have for businesses is my Grants Club VIP membership. So this is where what I found was people, business owners, don't have time, weren't even looking for grants, or they were finding out about grants too late and then couldn't apply, and they were missing those opportunities. So I have created the Grants Club VIP membership. And within this membership, your masterclass is free. So if you want more details on the Grants Club membership, head to my website, and basically it's a membership for business owners where you can, me and my team will look for grants for you. When we've found you a grant, we can help you write it. And we're also going to teach you about the grants ecosystem and how to do it better, and how to learn about this hidden economy of funding for your business. So I'm really, really excited about that. I also, within this Grants Club VIP membership, I guarantee that within 12 months, which is the membership, if I haven't matched you with the business grant to the value of your membership, I will refund your membership. So that is my money back guarantee to you for business owners. So basically no risk. And there is so much more information and resources within that group as well. And so far, my businesses that are in there, most of them I've been able to find them a grant within a couple of weeks of being a member. So that's pretty exciting. And I've also created a free exclusive Facebook group for anybody that is interested in learning more about grants, learning about how to do efficient business. And this is the Efficient Business Community Group on Facebook. You can put your phone up to the QR code, or you can join via the link that I'm just putting in the chat right now. So that is absolutely free. You can join that. I share my tips and tricks, a few grant things in there. You'll have access to my events and be the first to know about certain things, and some special offers throughout the year as well. So I'd love for you to join me and the other like-minded businesses in the Efficient Business Community Facebook group. So yeah, click on those links, and these links will also be sent out in the email after today's session as well. So today's webinar offer could not be easier. So we've got the masterclass happening on Tuesday. We've got the Grants Club VIP membership, and there's also the free Facebook group that you can join as well. luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity, and that could not be truer when it comes to grants, as I have hopefully demonstrated today. So thank you for joining me today. Here are my contact details. Head to my website. If you're in Australia, there's my phone number, or flick me an email on hello@theefficiencycoach.com.au. I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will hopefully see you guys later. Thank you.